But I think we might be at a turning point. You're seeing some really malevolent actors come to the fore. I would suggest that it's primarily a left-wing problem because I'm routinely called an insurrectionist, a rioter, a Nazi.
The demonisation of politicians has hit fever pitch. In America, we saw the grotesque endgame of that, the murder of Charlie Kirk, after years of the left branding him racist and Nazi, deplorable. Now that same poison is coursing through the politics of Britain. So Keir Starmer, Prime Minister, calls Nigel Farage an enemy of Britain. His deputy David Lammy even smeared him as having flirted with the Hitler Youth, which would made him quite old in my book. All the while, Farage's security detail has been quietly downgraded. So here's the question. Have we learned nothing? Is this the same rhetoric that ends in violence? And is free speech itself also under attack? That debate raging on both sides of the Atlantic. But my guest now is Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs, who's warned about the dangers of gagging political opponents, but also the dangers of political rhetoric. Congressman, thank you for joining us. You're a big advocate of free speech. You've campaigned on it, but political violence and essentially the horrific scenes within the last 3 months would suggest that we're not really finding the balance there, are we?
No, that's right. It's really difficult. The rhetoric's really hot, really rough. I mean, everything from anti-certain religions and that kind of language, anti-political speech, and the result is, Harry, as you might guess, is that there are certain people that respond to that, and they cannot respond and logically at least give a pseudo debate. Even they turn to violence, and that's what we're seeing.
After the awful scenes in Utah for three or 4 weeks ago now, Turning Point USA has returned to Utah this week or over the weekend under bomb threats, campus evacuations, wall-to-wall security. The tension is high. What does that say about the state of things in America right now, and what do we do about it?
Well, unfortunately, the state of play in America is violence is getting stronger, and it's present and it seems to be ubiquitous. It's if you step back and take a look at it, and it's very scary. Last night when I was there, we had drones, we had I don't know how many different police agencies were involved in providing security, plus private security, and this is and then you had 4 Mormons, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sitting on the stand, and you have people today in Arizona castigating TPUSA for having 4 members of the church on the stage in Utah, and in the type of terms that exercises violence, which you saw against the church. That's the same church in Michigan just a couple of days ago. So, Harry, it's big, it's palpable.
Are we reaching an era where sort of young conservatives are not safe on campus, are just not going to be speaking out in the way? Obviously, Charlie Kirk was a pioneer in that, but without, as you say, the SWAT teams and bomb squads and drones, is it even possible to have these debates in a civilized, reasonable manner?
Well, I think we're at I hate to use the term turning point, but I think we might be at a turning point. You're seeing some really malevolent actors come to the fore, but this movement that Charlie created, it seems to me to be so strong, and the young people in particular who adhere to, I mean, the principles that he was trying to espouse, which is, the West is good, America is the greatest country that ever was, and we have to preserve the Constitution. That was the divinely inspired document, and we have to be religious and get back to having families and save the family. You're seeing that movement now is being driven by young college-age kids who are not afraid to speak out. I hope that it doesn't get worse before it gets better. I hope that we're going to see a turning point now where it actually gets better. But unfortunately, we still see some of this horrific, hateful rhetoric.
The White House, president from the president down, including Vance, VP Vance, have been very quick to pin this on, entirely the rhetoric of the language of the left. They've been vowing various clampdowns on groups like Antifa. Pam Bondi even suggested, criminalizing hate speech, which is something the Brits have got into trouble over there. Is it really the proviso of just the left? I know there are statistics out that see left-wing violence and left-wing terrorism is on the up, but is it really an exclusively left-wing problem in your view?
Well, I would suggest that it's primarily a left-wing problem, yes, and that's coming from a guy who's just a hardcore conservative, but I don't nobody that I associate with or that I know is actually or looking at that's even in my circle advocates the kind of violent rhetoric that we hear from the left. I mean, when you demagogue somebody and you're saying they're a racist, they're a Nazi, they're a transphobe, homophobe, Islamophobe, whatever. That's a method of dehumanizing you instead of having the debate. And that's what killed Charlie Kirk, because Charlie wanted to have a debate. And he wanted to have it where you set aside the ad hominem attacks and you start going, I think my ideas are better. You prove me wrong. We're going to debate on this. I've literally watched him say to somebody, that's the best argument against me that I've heard. That's the type of thing that you get when you're debating. Stop debating, use ad hominem attacks, get out of logic, move to visceral reaction, and I think that gives birth to violence. I believe me, I just see a lot of incoming.
Back in the UK, Nigel Farage, who I know I think you've crossed swords with over on your committee, leader reform. The Prime Minister, the actual Prime Minister, has branded him a racist essentially for his immigration policies and called him an enemy of Britain. Can you draw a line, do you believe, in the rhetoric from politicians themselves? Farage is saying he's being put in danger by that rhetoric. Do you think he's overreacting, or is that fair?
I don't think he's overreacting. I think, first of all, political leaders are just that. They are leaders. They actually they lead. They change opinions. They help create opinions. And when you start saying that someone like Nigel Farage, because he wants a different immigration policy, is somehow a racist and any number of things, you dehumanize him. And there are people who follow political leaders rather closely, and basically they assimilate that point of view because they feel close to that person, they like that person, and so it might inspire actions. And I don't know, but I would guess that Nigel receives death threats just like we as members in Congress receive. Because I'm routinely called an insurrectionist or rioter. A Nazi, you name it, I'm called it by my political colleagues. And the result is a lot of death threats.
Yeah, the tensions are certainly high. Your committee, you're on the House Oversight Committee, you're bringing in the some tech CEOs next week, the likes of Reddit, Twitch, Discord to testify. What are you hoping to get out of that hearing? And is the sort of radicalization online and the rise of political violence and people, sharing that online, is that what we're getting into?
I think we're going to cover that. I think we also want to cover, has there been government interference in deplatforming conservative voices? Because we saw that under the Biden administration. So we want to get to that. We also want to talk about, how are they screening? I mean, obviously, they want to say that they're a platform that they have no liability for anything. Unlike a publisher in the U.S. We call that Section 230. So they want that protection to be able to let everybody on except for conservative voices. And so they allow violent speech to go on, but they don't want any kind of liability. And so if you're a publisher in the U.S. and you allow that kind of liability, you might be swept up in a defamation lawsuit, and they don't want that. So I think this is basically a prelude to actually closer examination of that Section 230 provision.
Yeah, so it's a debate raging in the UK. Where just get your final thoughts. I don't know how closely you've been following, but a man from Arizona, a comedian called Graham Linehan, stepped off a plane at London Heathrow Airport and was detained by 6 armed anti-terrorism police officers for a joke he'd written on Twitter. A US-hosted company. He'd written it while outside of the UK. It wasn't a very funny joke, but it was a joke nonetheless about trans, and was detained by the police. What is your, as a man from Arizona, what do you make of that and the plight of who could be next?
Well, we were outraged by it. We actually had a hearing on the erosion of free speech in the UK, and of course this case came up, and Yeah, I'm not sure that I thought it was a particularly funny joke, but the fact of the matter is he was expressing something here which would be protected speech, and he goes back to the UK, but because of some of your laws now, he was arrested. I mean, I do kind of track a little bit what's going on with speech in the UK because we you know we're the upstarts. We're only a few hundred years old, and the UK actually is what gave us classical liberalism, and I see a massive erosion of classical liberalism in the UK. I'm watching the night. I don't know how old this lady is. She's a grandmother. She holds a sign outside an abortion clinic, and she says,
Silent prayer.
yeah, I'm not coercing you. Just if you want to talk about this, I'm willing to talk. And she gets hauled into jail. I mean, these are the types of things where you say, what's happening with the West? That's why I like that Harry's trying to save the West, because the West needs to be saved.
Congressman, thanks for your thank you for playing your part in saving the West. And come and see us again soon. We're nearly there. We've got a few issues we've got to iron out, but we're getting there. Congressman Biggs, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, my panel's still with me. Sarah, what do you make of that fine line between, you know, in the aftermath of Charlie's tragic death, murder? We saw Pam Bondi rush out to sort of say we want to sort of legalise hate speech. We're going to, people seeing hundreds of people fired from jobs up and down the country. A lot of teachers, weirdly, for things they wrote about the murder. Is America in danger of going too far the other way and overcorrecting this? Obviously, First Amendment protections we have here, but not in the United Kingdom, or is the balance about right? Where do you see it?
I think that, honestly, over the past maybe 10 years, you're looking at exactly what we shouldn't be doing. So Kash Patel and Pam Bondi both came out really quickly saying what maybe they shouldn't have. And they rushed to it. Like Kash Patel talking minute by minute about what was going on with the murder, that, you know, that's not really what we're used to. And Pam Bondi in the same way. But in that reign, we saw so much as conservatives with Twitter, Twitch, Reddit, and everything of the sort being censored.
Deplatforming people.
Yes.
Covering up Hunter Biden's laptop story. Yeah.
But I don't see that being the problem for us, because we have to be overly cautious in that sense, not to be those people. Elon Musk didn't take care of Twitter and buy it and change it into what it is just to let it be what Jack or whatever his name was created.
Do you think that people in the administration got that? When Bondi came out with those comments about hate speech, we've seen what's happened in the United Kingdom, where people get literally arrested for jokes they've told on Twitter. I thought the MAGA base, the MAGA influencers, and that crowd were out pretty quick. Is it DOA? Have they put that to bed?
After the memorial service, I think people took the time to actually take a step back and see what can we do next. Everybody was feeling so deeply. People took a step away from all social media. I considered, but it is literally my job to do this. And honestly, after last night in Utah, just watching Alex Clark and the likes talk about Charlie and the legacy and where we're going moving forward, it ignited a new movement of conservatives on campuses. The turnout's been insane.
Joey, a revival rather than a memorial, as I think someone described Charlie's funeral as. Can the Republicans, without putting too sort of gross a point on it, Charlie was obviously a free speech advocate. He's also a brilliant campaigner. Yes. Are the Republicans going to be able to, capitalise and, lock that in as a voter base, do you believe?
Absolutely. I mean, people that were not even thinking about politics and were not even thinking about Charlie Kirk, they're all now focused right now, and they're all watching and they're listening to the things he said over his long career. He had 10 years of speeches and all these wonderful debates. People are listening and they're saying, wow, he made a lot of sense. Why is everyone calling him a Nazi? Why is everyone calling him far right? What does far right even mean? Because the term is so overused, and now nobody even understands what they're talking about when they say it.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I mean, Douglas Murray at the top of the hour was discussing it a little bit as well. But these terms that we throw around, like, and we're talking about defund the police and the hard left and fascist, Nazi, Nigel Farage being called an enemy of Britain. Are we at risk of just sort of completely devaluing these words?
Well,
and actually, do they still have the same impact? If someone calls you a Nazi, or in the left's view, it's like, no, the worst thing you could possibly be in the world is a racist.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to, those attacks don't seem to be landing.
No, at this point, you call me a racist, I just laugh. You call me a Nazi, haha. 10 years ago, I would have been extremely offended. How dare you call me a Nazi?
Oh,
Now I wake up in the morning and called a Nazi. So whatever, it's my alarm, I guess.
Are you uncancelable then, or do you take it? You still take it personally?
I still have feelings, but listen, there are words like woke and insurrection that over the past few years we've really used so far into oblivion that it's like they don't carry the same weight. Like, I don't like being called a racist. I don't like being called a Nazi, but I expect it.
I don't like being called woke. But how do we get? Yeah, obviously the tensions. The security around the Turning Point event in Utah yesterday, obviously, rightly protected. How do you, in your view, is that just going to become a standard fare now for Conservatives and speaking? They're going to need drones. And
absolutely. I mean, Charlie
Kirk.
Kirk.
Pretty sad state of affairs.
Yes, Charlie Kirk. His funeral had the same sort of security system as the Super Bowl, and that is absolutely insane. Like, his funeral will have more viewers than Bad Bunny.
Yeah,
and that's saying something.
We got into the Bad Bunny.
Oh,
Bad Bunny.
Adrian told me.
Talking of overuse of the word woke, but the woke NFL. Joey, I mean, how do we take the rhetoric down? Is it helpful from the White House, to be instantly going after the hard left, and on the flip side, is it just a right-wing issue?
Look, it's an issue that is going to be coming from the left, whether we match it or not. The left has been calling us these things forever, and if we just sit there and take it, we're going to be the ones having all the incoming, and I don't think it's right.
All right, we're going to go.